This is a Willets Point Shea Stadium bound 7 express train. The next and last stop is Willets Point, Shea Stadium.
Oh, yes, it is the Subway to Shea podcast. Anthony Rivera here with you, talking about all the news and happenings surrounding that team from Queens, the New York Mets. Episode 176 from the Subway to Shea studios in my office. We are getting ready for Christmas and New Year's, and there's still so much going on when it comes to the New York Mets, when it comes to Major League Baseball. Some moves happened this week, and the Mets are still looking for a first baseman. They're still looking for pitching, and we'll be getting into that with my good friend, Nick Durst, host of You Know I'm Right podcast, huge Mets fan, former host of Believe in the Mets podcast. Nick, my friend, how you doing today, man?
Anthony, I'm doing well because I'm getting to talk Mets baseball again with you, and that's a good thing. Lots to talk about. I actually connected with another former Believe Mets podcast host the other day, Casey Stern. He'll be coming on the You Know I'm Right podcast in the future. Lots going on for You Know I'm right now. A couple of big award nominations through the Sports Podcast Group. Please vote for us. Best Sports Business Podcast, Best Olympics Podcast. But listen, as far as the Mets, Anthony, so what do you want to talk about?
Well, as the old Abbott and Costello, one of my favorite comedy team duos, said, who's on first? That's really the big topic of the day, because we don't know yet, right? Yeah. I mean, you and I can both agree, and you've been talking about this from even your Believe in the Mets time, that you wanted Pete Alonso back, you wanted him re-signed, you wanted him extended, and we both want Pete Alonso back. Yes. And now that a lot of the first basemen have come off the board all on a Saturday afternoon, we are here to try to get Pete back to the New York Mets. Look at his 2024 season. It was what it was, right? I mean, you look outside, right? Outside view, 34 home runs, 88 RBIs. That's pretty good, right? And then when you if you're a diehard Met fan and you see behind the lines, you see the struggles that he had when it comes to hitting with runners in scoring position, hitting with the bases loaded. His clutch ability this year was a little bit off. Career numbers, 249 batting average, has 226 home runs, 586 RBIs. He's got an 854 OPS. Currently third all time in Mets history for home runs, 26 home runs away from the franchise lead by Darryl Strawberry, who has 252. The Mets had offered Pete a extension, I think it was in June of 2023. This was reported by Joel Sherman of the New York Post around May of 2024, that they had offered him a contract extension of 7 years, $158 million, kind of, reminiscent of the Michael Conforto, where he was offered the contract extension and then he decided not to take it, had a worse year. I don't even want to compare his year to Pete Alonso. That was absolutely worse than what Pete went through. But for not taking the extension, he lost a lot of money. And it looks like Pete kind of made a big mistake here, because I'm going to go through some of the contracts that have gone down on Saturday and, previously before that, because I don't see him getting 7 years. I don't see him getting that $158 million. You look at the contracts that were signed. Christian Walker, 34 years old, kind of comparable to Pete Alonso in the production, although Pete is a lot younger, signed a 3-year deal, $60 million, to play with the Houston Astros. Paul Goldschmidt on Saturday signed a 1-year deal, $12.5 million, to play with the New York Yankees. He's 37. Carlos Santana, I think he's 39, signed a 1-year deal, $12 million, to play and go back home to Cleveland. Because of that deal, Josh Naylor got traded to the Arizona Diamondbacks. You look over the leftover list of first basemen outside of Pete Alonso: Justin Turner, Donovan Solano, Connor Joe, Joey Gallo, Anthony Rizzo, Ty France, Josh Bell, Yuli Gurriel, G-Man Choi, who was in the Mets system last season, Rowdy Tellez, Gavin Sheets, and by trade, which I think is highly unlikely, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. when it comes to Pete and the contract extension numbers that I gave to you and all these other numbers from all these other players and first basemen that they got, what kind of contract offer would you give Pete Alonso right now? Years and money.
I give him 5 years, but I think ultimately he's going to sign a 4-year, $120 million contract with an opt-out after this season. That's what I think he's gonna end up signing.
After season one.
After season one.
Okay.
And I think that's risky for Pete because with Guerrero going to the market then. So maybe they go for an opt-out after 2 years. I think the Mets would love pay Alonso $30 million this year and then let him opt out, and then you could pick between him and Guerrero Jr. I think that's Stearns would love that. But I think if Boras is smart, you lock Pete in for 2 years at $30 million a year, which is a really high average annual value. So he makes $16 million over the next 2 years, and then you can test the free agents and see again at 32 and see if there's a desperate need for first base. I think that's ultimately what we're looking at: an opt out after this year, maybe opt out after next year, 4-year contract max with the opt out.
I like where your head's at with that deal. I was like, wow. After the first year, but to think about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. coming into free agency next season and the possibility to try to sign him, I think that's a great move to do it that way. I was in the 5-year range with the option being at the end of the 4th year, considering that there's a possibility that Juan Soto decides he wants to go to free agency again, that all this money frees up again and it resets the Mets on payroll. So I had him at 5 years, $125 million with a 25 average annual value. I know you said 30, but considering what I saw,
said 30 because I'm making 3-4-year deal because of the opt out.
Because of the opt out,
I would want him on a 5-year deal with 25 mil, 27 mil for the average salary.
I would not go if the option is not there at the front, I would go 27.5 is the maximum I would go for average annual value for Pete Alonso. You could tell us in the chat what you want to do about that and what your contract looks like for Pete Alonso. 141 people in here. Appreciate you all. Jonathan, Carlos, Brad, G-Money Stacks, Patty in NYC, Jeff Cohen in the house, Rosie K, my guy Johnny Boy is in here as well. Carlos Ramos in here. We got D in here. David Smith. So many of you guys. I'm trying to get to all of you since we only have 148 just now, because once we get to 300, I can't read off everyone's name. But I appreciate you all for tuning in early in the morning before you get yourself ready for NFL football.
Now, who cares about the NFL?
Who cares about the NFL?
This is a Mets town. Nobody cares about the Jets or Giants right now. It's all about the Mets.
Yeah, only on sports radio you're going to hear constant NFL talk with the 2 worst teams in all of football. I apologize for anyone who's a Jets and Giants fan, but it's a tough go around for all of them. But yeah, man, look, this contract that Pete's going to get, I think it's highly likely that he returns to the Mets with everyone else moving. I am a little concerned the fact that I don't know if he overplayed himself, which I think to a certain extent he did with Scott Boras, but not a lot of teams have really showed interest in Pete.
Right.
Is that a little bit concerning for you?
Listen, the Cubs, they're shutting payroll, right? So they don't Cody Bellinger. So that's not an option. We always hear about the Cubs and Pete Alonso. There's only 2 teams that could potentially want to spend the money. That's the San Francisco Giants and the Seattle Mariners. So I'm sure Boras is on the phone with them. He's talking to Buster Posey. He's talking to DePoto. Come on, you need Alonso. Alonso's a difference maker in your lineup. And he would be. But the Mets need him the most. So, listen, he's on the path to be a Hall of Famer. He's going to hit over 500 home runs. He plays this season. He's the greatest Met offensively of all time. He's going to shatter all the records. This is a guy you want back. He's good for the culture. He loves it here. The team loves him. And there's not many options. You have to just worry about the Giants and the Mariners. But right now, everything is turning up David Stearns' way. He's waiting out the market. You just got to have to worry that Alonso and Boras get annoyed with the Mets and they just sign with another team. They don't even go back to Stearns to match, because I think the Mets are going to match whatever the offer has to be. And if all things are equal, I think Alonso would prefer to be back with the Mets.
I do think as well that the Mets are starting to lose a little bit of leverage with all of the first basemen that are now off the board. Because, like I said, they're holding out, waiting, for
They need
Pete's
him now.
number to come down. Now at this point, like, I am not going to any of that list that I gave you, and I can repeat some of those names. Justin Turner, Donovan Solana, Connor Joe, like Joey Gallo, no thank you. Anthony Rizzo, he's on the decline. Ty France, Josh Bell. Yeah, maybe a few years ago, I would have wanted Josh Bell. 2022, we could have used Josh Bell for that playoff run. Yuli Gurriel, G-Man Choi, didn't even make the majors last year. Roddy Telez, Gavin. It's just the list is.
I think Vogelback might be a free agent too. I don't know if he could play first, but
Daniel Vogelback. Oh my God.
We discussed this you and I last week a little, but the backup plan is Alex Bregman moving on to first. So why would you want to have your backup plan to pay a player more money than your plan A? Just pay Alonso. He's going to get less money than Bregman. Bregman's going to definitely, I really think, get at minimum 180, 85 million over a 6, 7, 8 year deal. He could be pushing 200 million. So why would you want to do that when you could get Alonso for a lot less money?
Yeah. Let's get into the plan B since you mentioned it. Alex Bregman would possibly be the plan B for the New York Mets, which means moving probably Mark Vientos to first base. Last season for Alex Bregman, 260 batting average, had 26 homers, 75 RBIs, had 768 OPS. Not the best of seasons for him, but you look at his overall stats kind of in line with what he usually does. Good playoff performer. I tried comparing I don't even know what it's called anymore in the field in Houston. I don't even know if they changed the name so many times.
Right, it's not Minute Maid Park anymore.
Yeah, it's not Minute Maid. Remember, it was Enron Field for a while.
Or something.
Yeah, they keep changing it around. But trying to compare his home runs, in Houston and wherever else he hit them to Citi Field, and all 26 of his home runs would have been out at Citi Field. So the power, it would still be there. He's a year older. Has great defensive range, outs above average in the 91st percentile. What are your thoughts on Alex Bregman coming over here? And would you be disappointed if this Bregman, like if they sign Bregman, they don't bring back Alonso? Are you disappointed in that?
Well, on that part first, if they got Bregman and they don't bring back Alonso, I'm disappointed. I think at this point, if you don't have Alonso back, it's not a great offseason. I know you got Soto, but how much better did you get offensively? You lost your big power hitter. In his worst career year, he had the best power numbers on the team, one of the best in the league. So this is an unpopular opinion, and I know people have rebuted it and said it's not going to work out, but I think the plan A should be to sign Alonso and Bregman. I think you need both of them. I think Vientos profiles long-term as a DH. Now everyone's like, no, you don't want to put a young player at DH. Listen, Vientos, he can make some spectacular plays, but a routine play. I look at the game against the Phillies. They clinched the series, ground ball at him that we were like, oh my gosh, that we thought that was it. But he should be DH. They need to improve in DH. So the best way to improve in DH is to get Alex Bregman. Don't be signing an old DH who could just DH. And I've been seeing some people on Mets Twitter suggest this. I don't know if this is something he was open to, but I did kind of see some people saying Bregman was open to position change. So if Bregman is open to coming here and playing third base and second base, well, then it works out. You can move everybody around, keep people fresh. Vientos could play some third. Bregman could play second. McNeil could bounce to the outfield. You can get Marte some games at DH, move everybody around. I think that makes the most sense. Use McNeil to play all over the place because we know he's an above-average defender everywhere. And you make your team better because you're getting one of the best postseason players of all time, a total winner in Bregman, a great defender in Bregman, and you're getting Vientos off the field and having him just focus on hitting for the most part. He could still play. We need to back up first baseman, right? So Vientos could play first. He can move around. I don't want to waste anything like going to sign a guy who could just play first base, that can DH. I think, and everyone's like, get Winker back here too. I'd rather have Alex Bregman than Jesse Winker or some old first baseman that you mentioned, bringing him Rowdy Telez to DH and play first. That's a waste. I like the flexibility. Think about that lineup, Anthony, if you bring Alonso back and you have Alex Bregman in there.
Yeah, no, and the funny thing is that Michael Mayer of Metsmerized had the quote yesterday saying that Bregman was a legitimate landing spot to come to New York, and was asked, if the Mets do add Bregman and put Vientos at first, would that mean the club is moving on from Pete Alonso? And to his understanding, he said no. So having them both in the lineup, I would not be opposed to it. If Cohen's willing to pay that money, I would not be opposed to having both of them a part of this lineup and putting. I don't know if I would move him to second base. I haven't seen him play second base. I don't even know. Has he played second base?
No, but he came up as a shortstop. His first time playing third base was in the majors. So most of the time, guys who grew up as a shortstop, it's not going to be an easy adjustment, obviously, but they can make the move to second base. But like I said, I think the way to go is Vientos to DH. I understand he's a young guy. He's still going to play the field. You're going to move people around. Give Pete some days at DH. Bregman could get a few days off. I think offense. Think about that offense, Anthony. There's no holes 1 through 6, and then you have Alvarez batting ninth. And the other thing, if this doesn't work out, which it seems kind of likely, I don't understand why people want to trade Starling Marte. This guy was outside of Lindor, the best hitter they had in the postseason. He was so clutch. He had a solid year. Why would you want to get rid of him? What's the return going to be that you want to dump Marte? Are you really going to get a lights out reliever for Starling Marte? I don't think so.
Yeah, at this point, it's really just getting a body. I had Pat Ragazzo on last week, and we were talking about the trade for Starling Marte because he had posted the article originally, and it would be for relief pitching. But, what are you getting? Because Starling Marte had an okay year last year, but really had a great playoffs. It's not going to get you a top line reliever. You're probably going to get a body, basically, back. And if they could pay down the money, I'm pretty sure that they would do that as well. So to have him be in the DH role and be a rotational outfielder.
Maybe they can get Colin Holderman back for a Starling.
Oh, my goodness. That trade, unbelievable. I can't even. Now you're bringing back PTSD from 2022 that I can't handle right now. But look, Patty in NYC is saying, I'm not a fan of moving Vientos off of third base to become a DH. If it means to bring Bregman in here, and if the money cost is not anything, I'm kind of willing to do it. And it's because it makes the team
better. It makes the team better. They could win the World Series this year if they have Alex Bregman.
This team's lineup, I think, with Bregman, Alonso, and Vientos, it'll be a little more versatile, right? Because
what a 1 through 5. What a 1 through 5.
And it'll be versatile on the field because now you're spreading everyone throughout, and you can get rest on some of these players. Last season, by game 175, outside of Pete Alonso, who played every single game,
right?
Everyone had some sort of injury. Nimmo, his foot. Lindor dealing with his back. Everyone was hurt.
This would be really big, Anthony, because the offense is lacking at the bottom of the lineup. And if you're really going to go into the season planning to play Jose Siri and Tyrone Taylor in center field the whole year, what are you getting out of them? A combined 220 hitter, maybe 12, 13 home runs. You're not getting much offensively. That's a wasted spot. So if you want to go defense up the middle in center field, okay, then you better improve the offense around the diamond.
Yeah. You got to compete with the Dodgers lineup. You got to compete with the Phillies lineup, even though we beat the Phillies in the postseason. They still have a good lineup with Harper and Schwarber out there. And I'm pretty sure they're still looking to make moves. They made moves pitching-wise, which we'll get into a little bit later. And the Atlanta Braves dealt with so many injuries that we have to, face off against them as well. So that would be, I guess, the ultimate is to get both Bregman and Alonso. I don't know if that's something that happens. We just know that there is interest in all of them. So that's all we can go off of. And I'm very excited to see if the Mets can get something done for any of these players by Christmas. I feel like someone is going to sign by Christmas. I don't know if it's a starting pitcher. I don't know if it's Alonso. Or I feel like something is going to happen. It's been too quiet over the last couple of weeks.
Wouldn't you see around 11:30 p.m. December 30th, someone signs for the Mets?
Possibly.
Bomb.
Who can forget the great Christmas signing of Dylan Betances?
Wow. Think
Enough
about it. A
said.
few years ago, where we were signing all these cast-off Yankees, and now, fast forward, we're still signing cast-off Yankees.
Yeah. T-Bird44 saying Vientos had only 5 errors. Look, I like Mark Vientos at third base. If there's no getting Alex Bregman, I'm fine with Mark Vientos being the third baseman. Like going into spring training, it's his job to lose. Right? I thought he played a comparable third base, better than what Brett Beatty did. He's going to be better than Jeff McNeil and whoever else is out there outside of Alex Bregman, who's a very good defender. So if you have the opportunity to get both, you kind of have to make the move.
Yeah, Vientos -6 defensive run saves last year. So just because he only had 5 errors doesn't mean that he was a great defensive third baseman. His range is a little limited. And I'm with Anthony. If you don't sign Bregman, of course Vientos is going to play third base. We're just talking. The team needs to improve. Even if they got Alonso, Anthony, I still think there's work to do.
Oh,
so I
absolutely.
think you get Bregman and Alonso. I mean, I don't know why anybody wouldn't want Bregman and Alonso.
Yeah.
Bregman's a great player. If you have the top 5 guys in the lineup who are all going to hit over 25 home runs, it's pretty special.
I agree. And the way that the pitching is going right now, and it's still early, but if you were to start, tomorrow, opening day, but thank goodness we're not, you're going to need offense, right? Francisco Diaz, we need offense if the pitching is weak. It's absolutely true. Because David Stearns is right now compiling bodies, compiling depth in the minors and just trying to get people in here. Obviously, there's going to be injuries throughout the year. We suffered so much injuries during the bullpen, whether it was Drew Smith, and you could feel however you want about Drew Smith. But some of the other bodies that came out of the bullpen towards the end of the year were not great. So you're talking about Drew Smith got injured. Brooks Raley got injured. That was a big blow to the Mets bullpen. And you're going to need the offense to do this. So having Alonso obviously back, Alex Bregman for sure, Mark Vientos, if he does not have a sophomore slump, I think is the best possible lineup you can go into 2025 with.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Alonso as well, he's pretty good defensively. I mean, he's saved a lot of games for them in the postseason. So people say, "Oh, Alonso's not good defensively." That's nonsense. He gets better every year. And how about some of those scoops and stretches he made in the postseason that won them games, especially versus Milwaukee and Philly. So listen, you get Alonso. That has to be a given. You and I have been talking about this for over a year. And from there, there's still work to do offensively because the pitching right now, it's definitely not going to cut it.
And also, you think about this. You bring in Bregman, right? You have Vientos. Even if you decide to move Bregman to second, which is not my favorite thing to do, but if you want to keep Vientos at third, you have Bregman at second. You have a plethora of Mets in the farm system, whether it's Acuna, Beatty, Jet Williams. I'm not married to or a prospect hugger.
Trade them.
Trade them to get
pitchers.
You could trade them to get starting pitchers. Luis Castillo is out there. Dylan Cease, you could talk about. I'm trying to think about Jordan. A lot of people don't want Jordan Montgomery because of the year he had last year, but he's a pitcher. He pitches.
They could get Jordan Montgomery for like one prospect who's not even big, and then that'd be an improvement.
He's a New York pitcher. Pitched for the Yankees pretty well, I would say. Playoff pitcher. Pitched that great World Series and postseason for the Texas Rangers. So that's a guy I would look into as well on the trade front. My number one guy is obviously Luis Castillo. I would love to see him come to the Mets, considering all the starting pitching that's out there in Seattle. Imagine the Mets having that starting pitching right now. That would be fantastic. That's what we're going to get into right here next, is the Mets starting pitching, how to round out this rotation. And we got some questions in the chat, which we're going to get into shortly as well, that are going to go along with this discussion here, because I want to say that it was who posted it? Frank Puglisi. Hey, guys, happy holidays. Happy holidays to you too, my brother. What do you think about the Mets getting a starting pitcher? And if so, who do you think would be a good fit? Let's get into what they have right now, as well as who's out there still. Right now, the rotation, and it's not the end. I know they keep posting graphics on SNY on the Mets. Every time there's a picture, they post a new graphic. This is the starting rotation and what it looks like. It's like, can we wait? Can we wait at least until February before you start posting that graphic? But right now, these are the list of names that are vying for spots in the rotation. Obviously, Kodai Senga is going to be a part of it, but he's got to stay healthy. David Peterson, Frankie Montas, who they signed this offseason, Clay Holmes, who's being converted from a relief pitcher to a starting pitcher, Tyler McGill, Jose Butto, Paul Blackburn, and Griffin Canning. Jose Butto probably towards the end of that list because he'll probably be more of that swingman, long reliever role. Griffin Canning, who they just signed this past week, 1 year, $4.25 million deal with a $1 million bonus. Last season, 6-13 with a 5.19 ERA, started 31 games, pitched a career high of 171 and 2/3 innings pitched. His career ERA is 4.78. His baseball savant page is not good. I don't know if you checked it out.
Listen, Anthony, when I saw that they signed Griffin Canning to a major league contract at over $4 million, I was like, what the heck? This guy had the worst ERA in the AL last year. This is a guy you sign, you put him in AAA, and you call up when somebody gets hurt. Now that he's going to be on the roster. This is ridiculous. Frankie Montas, awful signing. We'll give Stearns the benefit of the doubt, but to jump the market, to sign him, get such a big deal for 2 years, or he's coming off a terrible year as well. It's really head-scratching. I would have preferred, and this is not going to be a popular opinion, if you're looking at those two guys just specifically, not talking top of the market, not talking front of the rotation, talking back end. I know they're injury prone, but I would have rather given like a 1-year deal to Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander than to pay Frankie Montas there's 30-40 million and Griffin Canning $5 million. Because at least with them, if they're healthy, which is probably not happening, you get something, and they're going to be less money. You could have got one of those guys, Anthony, on a 1-year deal for less money you're paying Frankie Montas.
The problem is they need guys to stay on the field and give them innings.
Frankie Montas was hurt last year too. He's not a healthy guy.
The thing is, I agree with you. His deal, I don't like his deal. I understand what David Stearns is doing, right? We both understand that David Stearns is trying to revive some of these guys' career. The problem is you can't do that with 2 to 3 pieces of the rotation every single year and expect
I would have rather had Jose Quintana back than Frankie Montas.
Look, I've even considered that thought as well, but I just can't. I can't give anything to Justin Verlander, 40 years old now. He didn't even stay healthy all season last year, and the fact that he didn't stay healthy we're lucky because all that money now has come off the books. We would have less money to spend this year if he made his innings limit. Same thing goes for Max Scherzer, who barely didn't pitch.
As the 6th starter, I would have took one of them over Griffin Canning. Because how high is the upside in Griffin Canning? Could he lower his ERA to 5 instead of 5.9? Maybe.
I mean, the career ERA for him is 4.78, like we mentioned earlier before. Look, I just
Frankie Montas' ERA last year was atrocious. So now you got Frankie Montas as like a middle of the rotation guy. Frankie Montas is like a 6th guy in the rotation at best. So lots of work to do with the Mets rotation.
There is. Jeremy Hefner has a lot of work ahead of him when it comes to these guys. The best thing on Griffin Canning's baseball savant page, the chase rate at 54%. That's the highest thing he's got. Everything is in the blue.
I guess
blue to gray.
Gotta hone that somehow.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of is obviously it's for depth and possibly to make some spot starts. To me, for a guy like
he's gonna be in the bullpen, you think? I mean, he got a major league.
I think so. I think his best attribute right now is to be a swing man, partner with Jose Butto, because as great as Jose Butto was down the stretch last season, forget the postseason. By that time, he was already spent with the rest of the pitchers.
He was terrible in the postseason.
He was awful, right? Awful, except for that first game where he pitched 2 innings, right? He was awful.
When Butto and Diaz were coming in the postseason, you knew it was trouble.
Yeah. I don't want Edwin Diaz coming in the 7th inning or the 6th inning to get 1 out anymore. But, when it came to Jose Butto, after that first outing, I think it was in game 2, he pitched 2 innings, 2 shutout innings. And they said, well, he usually can't come back after, 3 days. He needs like 3 days rest. What did they do? They brought him back the next day. And he gave up 2 bombs to the Brewers before the Mets made that miraculous comeback, thanks to Pete Alonso. But Jose Butto is a guy, if he's not going to start, he's a swing man that after pitching 2 or 3 innings, he needs 4 days off. So you need another guy like that in the bullpen to be doing that. And if that's Griffin Canning, maybe it'll work out. But that's the only way I could see this happening. And then maybe he gets some spot starts when there's injuries, so the Mets don't have to sign Julio Teheran.
If you go with this rotation that they have right now, even if you want to say we get Manaea, right? You better get like 4 legitimate relievers because this rotation's dicey at best. Outside of, I think Senga's going to be really good this year. Peterson was the ace last year, in my opinion. Beyond that, a lot of question marks as far as what you're going to get for the full season.
There are plenty of question marks when it comes to this rotation.
Yeah.
When you're looking at, adding the depth that they have, that's fine that they did that. But now they got to start playing in the big field now. Right. They got to start thinking about getting these guys.
How are they going to get Sasaki? They don't have the money. They can't. It's not a money thing. So Sasaki's going to go to the Dodgers. He's going to play with Ohtani and Yamamoto, unless Senga has some sort of relationship with him, which I don't think so.
I think he ends up in San Diego to be with a guy that he's idolizing, Hugh Darvish.
Okay.
I think that's the route for him.
So he'll be on the West Coast.
But the Mets did meet with him on Thursday. At least they got a meeting. At least they were letting the door to talk to him.
But listen, I mean, Jeremy Hefner, he's really wide regarded very well in the industry. So could that be the difference maker? Apparently it was for Clay Holmes, but maybe Clay Holmes also didn't have any other people looking to have him as a starter. So you can't believe everything these people say in their press conferences.
Yeah. You look at what has been done. You look at other free agents that are available. I mean, it would be nice to get Sasaki, considering that they don't have to spend a crazy amount of money to get him. It would be on a minor league deal.
Right.
It would be
nice.
Manaea
now. Manaea is going to get a 5-year deal, maybe 6, and I think that takes the Mets out of it. The starting pitching market's crazy.
Well, here are the rest of the starting pitchers in free agency. Corbin Burns, who's a Carlos Ramos super fan of Corbin Burns here. I know he wants
no brainer to sign him. No brainer.
Yeah, Sean Manaea is left over. Jack Flaherty, Kyle Gibson, Nick Pivetta, Charlie Morton. You have Andrew Heaney on the other side, Jose Quintana, Michael Lorenzen, Mike Clevenger. Remember good old friend Trevor Williams, Lance Lynn, Colin Ray. Like, we're really now get Cal Quantrill, Anthony DeSclafani. I remember the Mets wanted him at some point. The Mets wanted Wade Miley, Martin Perez, Ross Stripling, Zach Davies. I mean, you're really now that second half of the list, right? I want to say probably Michael Lorenzen down. Those are like typical David Stearns. Like, he would have a field day.
Again, I'd rather have Jose Quintana back.
Jose Quintana on a 1-year deal, I'm pretty sure people would be okay with. I know a lot want Corbin Burns. Yeah. I don't know what kind of deal he's getting, right? There are some reporting that a short-term deal is in play.
Max got an 8-year deal. Burns is going to get at least an 8-year deal.
Yeah.
He's better than Max Fried.
But some are reporting that he may take a shorter-term deal.
All right, give him $45 million for this year. Let him be a Met.
See, I would give that deal that Scherzer and Verlander got.
Yeah, absolutely.
Give him low years, give him high AAV, max it out at 4 years, make him the highest paid pitcher AAV wise,
sure,
and then get going.
And there's one guy you didn't mention that I think they are going to consider. That's Walker Buehler. I think I could see the Mets signing it. But the pitching market's so crazy, he might get a multi-year deal, and at that point, the Mets would be out.
Yeah, if his years if it's like a 3-year deal for him and he gets somewhere like in the 60 million range or even, I don't know, 40, 50 mil, I think that would be too much for the Mets to get involved with when it comes to Walker Buehler. He's got the talent. The thing is can he stay healthy? We saw him in the postseason pitch pretty well. I mean, he closed out the World Series, but I just don't know. I think guys like Flaherty, Manaea, even a guy like Nick Pivetta who has a qualifying order attached to him.
I do not want Nick Pivetta. He's not worth giving up a draft pick for. He's not that good. He's a back end starter. They need front end starters right now.
We both agree too. Like, I know that the Mets are probably going to get one more starter. Honestly, to me, they need about 2 more.
Yeah. I think the chances of Manaea coming back are 50-50. I don't think it's a very high chance because I think that the years he's going to get are going to potentially take the Mets out of it. So like I said, if you're going to go into the year with this starter rotation, we're going to assume they're not going to get Sasaki. We'll know by January 15th. They're going to bring in somebody else from that list you mentioned. I want Quintana back. I agree with Ricardo. So from there, you better build out a dynamic bullpen because the bullpen was really bad in the postseason.
I just don't see them paying for any relievers to come in the bullpen. I want Tanner Scott.
Well, yeah, they're not going to do that, but why can't you sign David Robertson to a 1-year deal? Why don't you sign Kenley Jansen to a 1-year deal? I mean, there's some of these guys are going to get 1-year deals, and I think those 2 guys would be really good. Kirby Yates, he's 38. He might get a multi-year deal. That's kind of iffy. Paul Sewald, I wouldn't mind seeing him back here in a 1-year deal. There are some guys out there, but the bottom line is the bullpen needs to get better. And what's the old adage? Oh, you need to have a lefty in the bullpen. Who's the lefty in the bullpen right now? Nobody. And let's make sure we don't, go crazy and we got Fujinami back, or there's people who are terrible, don't even pitch. The bullpen keeps getting neglected every single year, and every single year it is a major issue for them, and it's something they should consider addressing for once, in my opinion.
Well, the Mets really have to build out when it comes to pitching with prospects. I mean, if they don't want to pay all this money, you better have a good, prospect pool to come from. Outside, they only have Brandon Sproat, really.
Yeah.
Blake Tidwell. Those are the 2 guys that are next in line. Jonah Tong is still a little bit away. You got to build from within when it comes to pitching, because spending a whole lot of money on these pitchers that get hurt all the time, it's just not the way to go. I'll spend on positional players, but to spend on pitching at the rate that pitching is going right now just doesn't work. It just doesn't work on a year-end basis.
Yeah, go trade a prospect, get David Bednar from the Pirates. They're dying to trade him. They're not going to pay him. Something like that would work, in my opinion.
Yeah. There are names out there to make stuff like this work, and we just got to see, where the Mets land. I'm going to ask you a 2-part question. One, if you're only able to get one of these starting pitchers, who is it? And is it someone in free agency? Is it via trade? Also a name that got thrown in here. Just mentioned the other day. Jeff Cohen mentioned Pablo Lopez from the Minnesota Twins as well as a possible trade candidate. So if you're all the names that I've mentioned, you only get one starting pitcher. Who is that?
Corbin Burns. He's the best. He makes the team the best.
Now we both know they need 2.
Yeah.
You already mentioned Corbin Burns. To go with Corbin Burns, who are you adding to that?
Jose Quintana. I'll be realistic. I don't think they get Burns and Manaea. I say you can get Corbin Burns and you bring Quintana in a 1-year deal. You need another lefty in there. I think that makes the team better, starting pitching wise, than last year.
Look, if the Mets are going to give a big time contract or give a lot of money to a guy like Corbin Burns, especially on a short-term deal, bringing in Jose Quintana back probably makes the most sense. If you get Corbin Burns, you're not getting Sean Manaea. You're not getting Jack Flaherty. You're not getting any of those big time. You're looking for a 1 year, I don't want to say prove it to me deal. I don't know what Jose Quintana really has to prove, but you're getting one of these lower end guys to go along with him.
Right. And Quintana, he never missed a start. He was great down the stretch. Awesome in the postseason. He's a lefty. 1 year deal. And then you hope that Brandon Sprout or Blade Tidwell, they develop. They make a debut at some point this year. They're ready next year. Christian Scott next year off the Tommy John surgery. Like you said, the way to win in baseball is, in my opinion, you pay the superstar position players and you develop your own starting pitchers.
Ricardo likes Flaherty and or Quintana or Manaea and Quintana. Would you do any of those?
Yeah, I mean, I would bring, again, I think Quintana to me is like a no-brainer to bring him back. So he's your secondary guy. And then you want to go for Flaherty, okay. You want to go for Manaea, okay. I just think that those guys are going to get paid. Manaea is going to get a longer term deal. So if you're getting to the point where Manaea is getting 5-6 years, why not pay Corbin Burns a seventh year, right?
Yeah. As Jeff Cohen says, the Mets really need 7 to. Yeah, I think it's more. I think they need more than 7 to 8 starters. I don't want to have to crack into bringing back Tyler McGill into the rotation.
So what do you want? You want McGill in the bullpen?
Honestly, I don't even know if I want to see McGill anymore.
You've always been a big McGill hater.
No, because it's just he's all I've heard from. He's got great stuff. It's going to come around, and it never comes around consistently, right? I mean, he did have the good September, but he also had a good April a couple of years ago, and then he came into the playoffs and he wasn't the same. What
about Joey Lucchesi? They still got him, so he's one of their.
No. I thought Joey Lucchesi's gone now.
Is he? He's a free agent.
I think so.
Okay.
I mean, I'm willing to throw David Peterson and see if he can be consistent after his great season.
David Peterson has to be with the rotation. He was their best pitcher last year. He was better than Manaea.
Yeah. He was. What did he go? 12-3 last season. He was real, or 10-3. He was really good coming back from that hip surgery. So he's definitely a guy that has to be above, Paul Blackburn.
No, Peterson's gonna be him or Senga have to start opening day. So they're the top 2 pitchers in the rotation right now. McGill, I think McGill should be on the team in some capacity, but I think there's too much yo-yoing with him. One day he's in the majors, then he's in the minors, or throwing the bullpen. I want to see them pick one lane for him. So let's just say he's got the stuff, right? And he wanted to be in the bullpen. Well, I want him to go into spring training as a reliever. That way he can focus on getting that mentality right.
Like his brother.
Throwing those hard pitches, and then see what happens. This Mets team organization for years has always been too much yo-yoing with the starting pitchers, the prospects, dating back to Henry Mejia. Remember? He's supposed to be a great starting pitcher. They need him. He's in the bullpen. He's starting pitcher. He's not as good.
Montero.
Seth Lugo, Rafael Montero. It's always the same story. Pick a lane.
I think they're starting to do that under David Stearns. All the stuff that happened under the Wilpon era and trying to maximize all these players with the talent that they had, and it never worked because they didn't want to sign and they didn't want to spend on big time players when they needed it. Ibby in the chat from Till Mets Do His Part. It's time to aspire for more than you can do better than Tyler McGill. Look, if they're going to just throw him in the bullpen, just throw him in the bullpen already. Like you said, just stop dilly-dallying with him into the rotation and make him a guy
because
that comes out of the
McGill
bullpen.
that drives a lot of you Mets fans crazy is that he's starting pitching all year, and then all of a sudden in these high leverage spots at the end of the season or in the playoffs, they're like throwing McGill out there to get a huge save when he hasn't pitched in the bullpen the whole year, and then he hasn't been able to do it correctly, and then you're like, oh, McGill stinks. Well, like I said, and I just said to you, Anthony, you said the same thing. If he's going to be in the bullpen in these high leverage spots in September and October, just put him in there in April and let him pitch in the bullpen the whole year.
Yeah. Stop messing around. Like I said, stop dilly-dallying with the guy. Pick a lane for him, and like you said, stay in that lane, because you gotta at some point, all this talent that I've heard from him has got to come out at some point and find consistency when it comes to Tyler McGill. And I don't know if we see it, when we see it, but I know I don't want him to be a consistent part of the starting rotation. That's definitely for sure. Some more things coming out of the chat here, and shout out to all of you. It's 296. We're close to
everyone's commenting they want Jesus Luzardo. Wow, too bad.
Jesus Luzardo was traded. I know some people I'm thinking are reacting to the trade that went down. I know Duran Rivera saying he thought that the pitching lab would have got the most out of him. He got traded from the Marlins. He stays in division. He goes to the Philadelphia Phillies for Starlin Caba, who's the number 4th.
I mean, am I missing something? This guy's career ERA is 4.29. He had a 5 ERA last year. Granted, his team's terrible. He had a career low almost in innings pitched, 66.2. He wasn't exactly healthy. I don't know. I mean, I guess he was pretty solid 2022-23, but I don't even know what the price was they gave up for him. So
they gave up Starlin Caba, Phillies 4th prospect per MLB pipeline, and Marion Boyd, who's a number 23 prospect. Now, I got to see where these two prospects would rank in the Mets in the Mets system. Like, where are they in the top 100 of the MLB pipeline? Because everyone will say, "Oh, you just trade Jet Williams," or you could, but it depends on where these guys are ranked. A lot of the time, and obviously the Mets don't really want to trade Jet Williams yet or Brandon Sproat. That was like a breaking point when it came to the Garrett Crochet talks. So if those two guys are out, and you're looking at the rest of the Mets prospect pool.
Right, you're going to trade. Like, the question I would ask these Mets fans is, would you have traded Luis Angel Acuna in division for Jesus Luzardo? Because that's probably realistically what you're looking at.
Yeah. Would you make that trade?
No, I would trade Acuna, but I wouldn't trade him for Jesus Luzardo within a division.
Yeah, because then you have to see him every day. I have high hopes for Acuna, considering what we saw from him.
Right. You want to ask me, would I trade Acuna to like the Padres for, like a Joe Musgrove or a Dylan Cease? Yeah, I'd do that because they're
Seattle, Minnesota for Lopez, Seattle, Castillo. Yeah, that you can throw those to get whatever you can to get a Castillo or even a Pablo Lopez. I'm all in. Right.
And I think you and I, Anthony, are the only two Mets fans that could confidently say we have no issue trading Jet Williams for the appropriate starting pitcher.
I have no attachment to the minor leagues. I just don't.
I know you.
I know a lot of people don't want to trade the prospects, but
I wouldn't trade Brandon Sprout. Like, I think we got to hold on to our pitcher.
Well, the pitching you have to hold on to.
You know what? We got Jet Williams. Okay, we got Acuna, we got Gilbert, we got Clifford. There's no spot for all of them in the majors. We have Lindor at shortstop. We got Vientos. We have Brandon Nimmo on a seven more years. We got Soto for 15 more years. So only one of them can play center field. Only one of them can play second base in the future. There's not enough space for everybody.
Yeah, there really isn't. That's the unfortunate thing when it comes to building a roster here. But let me see. I had a couple other good ones here that I want to go to before we head on out of the show. Pizza Sports Guy. How would you feel if Manaea was the only significant pitching addition? Look, as much as I want Sean Manaea back, if he's the only addition that they bring into the rotation, that still doesn't make me confident that this team can be in line with the Dodgers rotation, the Padres rotation, if
Phillies
healthy.
Rotation.
Yeah, the Phillies rotation, especially after adding Luzardo, and if healthy, the Atlanta Braves rotation. So that's why I'm saying I feel like I definitely need to see two pieces of the rotation added. And those other guys, the Blackburns, Cannings, McGills, even Holmes and Montas, if you keep pushing them down the line, that's fine. Hey, I wanted Clay Holmes, but to be in the bullpen to help out Edwin Diaz. I wasn't considering him as a rotation piece.
Here's the thing, Anthony. We started the show by saying that If the Mets sign just Alonso, it's not enough. And we'll close by saying if they just sign Manaea, it's not enough. They need more.
They do. More. They definitely do need more. Justin Hulton is asking, do you think the Diamondbacks are done making moves? Well, they got Naylor in there. They let go of Christian Walker.
I think they're going to trade Montgomery.
I think they do too. And I put up this question because, I feel like the Mets could be a possibility for Jordan Montgomery. I wouldn't be opposed to it at all.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably pay cash for Jordan Montgomery, and then you get him for nothing.
Yeah, the owner is so upset of that deal that he made that he's just willing to say, yeah, time to move on from Jordan Montgomery. Pastor Steve Bovey says, sign Pete 6 years, $25 million per year, with the understanding that if the Mets, I guess, get Vlad, that Pete would be the big poppy of them. If they sign Pete Alonso, I don't think that they're getting Vladimir Guerrero and saying, hey, Pete, just move over. I just don't think that's going to.
Guerrero's going to play third base.
Yeah. I think it's one or the other. It's either you sign Pete to the deal. I think what's more realistic is what we talked about earlier. You pairing Pete with Bregman, you're not going to be pairing Pete and Vlad Guerrero Jr. I just don't see it.
Yeah, but if you get Pete and Guerrero, Anthony, what about Jet Williams? What about Luis Angel Acuna? Where are they going to play?
Play left out. Basically play left out.
What about Ronnie Mauricio? Honestly, I really want to know. You think he's going to be ready for opening day for AAA? Because he's not going to be in the majors, but he's still an interesting piece because I think he's got a flexibility to play all around the diamond. He showed some flashes, but he's going to be in AAA. But I don't know if he's going to even be healthy enough to start the season in AAA. But at some point, I think he'll come up to the majors with injuries.
He has taken forever to get healthy from that injury. I don't think he sniffs the major leagues until maybe September again. I just don't see it happening.
Now, David Stearns, he definitely deserves the benefit of the doubt. I know people get crazy, myself included sometimes, with the way he waits things out. He signs these bums like Frankie Montas, but I don't understand what the holdup is here. Why has Jose Iglesias not been signed? We need him back.
I want Jose Iglesias back. I wanted Jose Iglesias back, and as well as Jesse Winker. I wanted both of those guys back. And
Winker, though, you have to wait on Winker. You got to see what happens with if you get Alonso and Bregman, because at that point, it's like, okay, you already have 5 outfielders with Jose Siri and Taylor, and then you got Marte, McNeil. So it's okay to wait on Winker. Nobody's jumping the market to sign him. See what happens first, but with a guy like Iglesias, who is going to be your bench guy, I can't imagine he's had such a huge market that you can't go out there and give him a 1-year deal. Because Winker could end up getting a 2-year deal, whatever, but that's okay. Wow.
The reason why I want Winker's back is you definitely need a lefty off the bench. You got Terrence, righty. You have the Taylor-Siri combination. One of those is going to be on the bench, righty, right? Marte is going to play sometime here and there off the bench.
Maybe not Anthony, because like I said, if you get Bregman, right? McNeil could be your lefty.
But I guess so.
I know you hate McNeil, but
I don't. I don't hate Jeff McNeil. I think his time is done.
The thing is, though, if you're looking at between McNeil and Winker, as far as who your guy's going to be, you should go with McNeil because he could play multiple positions. Winker could barely play the outfield, and he's just going to be a DH pinch hitter. At least with McNeil, you could put him in the corners. You could put him at second. If you had to put him at third. And then at that point, if McNeil's going to the bench, I don't know. Maybe that means no Iglesias, but you have to have a backup shortstop, right? Somebody has to play shortstop. So I think you got to bring Iglesias back because you're not going to have Acuna in the majors to start the year on the bench. So Iglesias is the perfect guy for the bench. Perfect.
I think also that's probably why the Mets are a little hesitant on trading Luis Angel Acuna because of the injury to Francisco Lindor's back last season. We don't know if that's going to be a chronic issue or not. He was a lot healthier in the postseason, but we don't know if that injury can come creeping back. When it comes to the outfield, is Brandon Nimmo, who kind of had, I don't know if he had plantar fasciitis to end the season, but that foot injury, I mean, he's got to be manning left field. He's definitely not going to be playing center field as much anymore.
The thing is, they really should have him in center field because they're much better to play Nimmo, Marte, and Soto with the current roster than, Jose Siri out there batting $125.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap up here. We got a little bit of news and happenings with the Mets. This, I'm pretty sure, will interest you to the highest degree. The Mets signed 3 minor leaguers here. Left-handed pitcher Anthony Gose, right-handed pitcher Oliver Ortega, right-handed pitcher I think I got that wrong. I think it's Luis Ortiz. And then Chris Williams, a catcher. Now, Anthony Gose, a lot of people may remember, was a huge outfield prospect for the Toronto Blue Jays. I think it was James Shiano who posted that he was a possibility in that Syndergaard for Dickey trade back in 2013. So, now he's a pitcher. 3-0, 4.78 ERA, 41 strikeouts, just another body. All these pitches, another body. Chris Williams, backup catcher, hit 66 home runs in his last 3 seasons in the minor leagues. I'm sure this has got you and Mets fan base excited to add more depth.
Yeah. I mean, Anthony Gose probably, mark him down for a midsummer start for the Mets, spot start. And the other guys will never hear from again.
Yeah. And finally, Ricky Henderson passed away on Saturday at the age of 65. Hall of Famer, MVP, 1990 with the Oakland A's, ALCS MVP, Gold Glover, 10-time All-Star, 3-time Silver Slugger, and 2-time World Series champion. Part of that 99 Mets team. He did play a little bit for the Mets in 2000 before they let him go, but that 99 season batted .315, 12 homers, 42 RBIs, and 37 stolen bases. In 2006, he became a Mets special instructor. And then in 2007 was the Mets first base coach, helped Jose Reyes take it to another level when it comes to stolen bases. I mean, he led the league in 2006, 64 stolen bases, and then one upped it in 2007, 78 stolen bases. This came from Jose Reyes' Instagram. It was, "I'm sorry to hear of Ricky Henderson's passing. Of course, I was a huge fan of his growing up, and I patterned my game after him. I was also lucky enough to work with him early in my career when he helped me a lot. My thoughts and prayers are with his family and friends. Rest in peace to the greatest." What are your thoughts on, the life and career, which spanned, I think, over 25 years?
25 seasons. He was a winner everywhere he went. Won the World Series with Oakland. People forget he was on the Blue Jays team that won the World Series. Mets team going to the NLCS. I was, a privileged kid here, be able to grow up. The first Mets team I'm remembering is Ricky Henderson leading off for the team. I remember him hitting leading off home runs all the time, stolen bases at the age of 40. Then he went on to play 5 more years. He was with the Padres and stuff. I mean, this guy was incredible. The greatest leadoff hitter of all time. The greatest stolen base player of all time. His record will probably never even be touched as far as stolen bases. But for now, we get excited if a guy steals 50 bases. He was stealing 150 bases a year. So left in the base, I'm the greatest of all time, and he was.
Could you imagine him now with the new rules as well as the new
get
bases?
On first, he'd be stealing second, he'd be stealing third within 2 pitches.
He might have close to 200 stolen bases in a season.
Yeah.
If that was the case. Like you, I remember that 99 season the most. I was like, 1998 was when I first started watching.
Right.
And then when the Mets made all those moves in the offseason, re-signing Piazza, bringing in Robin Ventura, Armando Benitez, even bringing back Bobby Bonilla and Ricky Henderson was kind of the icing on the top of those moves. He had a great season. He even had a great postseason. I posted his home run from the wild card game all the way up to until even in game 6, he had, big hits in that game. And then Bobby took him out and he got really frustrated about that. But they had to figure out a way to get, Melvin Mora into play because he was having one of the best, postseasons. And it was late inning defensive.
They traded Melvin Mora from Mike Bordick to the Orioles, and then Mora went on to be a multi-time All-Star.
Yeah. There were a lot of mistakes. There were a lot of mistakes when it comes to trades. And that's, what can you do?
Yeah.
But I do, have a soft spot in my heart for Ricky Henderson and what he did. I try not to remember, the way he exited Shea Stadium and the Mets organization and try to think about that great year that he had that we both got to witness as kids. So, our hearts and condolences, and I'll send them all out to Ricky Henderson and his family during this tough time. And, rest in peace to the greatest of all time, as you said it earlier, and as he said it in his speech when he stole, broke the record stealing, top line of the bases there. Nick, this has been a great episode with you, my friend. We had 293 people, close to 300. I think we went over 300. We got 293 right now. Shout out to everyone in the chat. If I didn't get to your comment, I apologize. But, come back next week.
There was a good comment about the Mets getting Jock Peterson in a one-year deal. I would rather him than Jesse Winker.
I've heard a lot of people say that as well. They would rather have Jock Peterson on the Mets.
Because he could play center field.
He can play outfield. You got to be as versatile as possible. I don't ever want to go back to a time where the Mets have a guy like Daniel Vogelback taking up just being a DH and not being able to provide any other help anywhere else on the field. So I want those days to end. I want versatility, and I want athleticism on this team. So, Nick, before we wrap up here, let me know, let everyone know what you have going on in your life, in the I'm Right podcast as well. You got a Christmas episode. Make sure to plug that, the website, as well as the Sports Award website as well.
Yeah, so I'm Right podcast. Subscribe to us on YouTube. And we're on everywhere. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Best way to find us, go to Instagram at YKR Podcast. Click that link tree there. Everything's there. Big Christmas special coming out tomorrow with Mark Malusis, the Moose, Keith Arizari, and Maria Marino. Check that out. We do a lot of sports talk on the Right podcast, and a lot of reality TV stuff as well, entertainment, a lot of sports broadcasters. We've had everybody on for SNY telling their origin stories. It's a very interesting podcast. You'll definitely enjoy it. I saw so many people have missed me on my Mets show. Well, you could thank Believe for that. Don't believe and believe. They're a disaster. Boycott them. But listen, I always have the opportunity to come here and talk Mets with Anthony. I'm sure I'll do it again down the road. But if you can, please, the Sports Podcast Group, they have once again nominated my show, the I'm Right podcast, for the best sports business podcast as well as the best Olympics podcast. So easiest way to vote for me, head it over to my X account at YKR Podcast. The pin tweet is there. Click the link there. Your votes will be greatly appreciated. And Anthony, thank you for the time. Let's go Mets.
Always appreciate, my friend. And you will see Nick more often. He will be on Subway to Shea. He's been a good friend of mine for a while. We're going to get him on the podcast more often than not. Once again, thank you everyone for tuning in to the Subway to Shea podcast. You can follow on X, Instagram, and TikTok at Subway to Shea. You can follow me on X at AntRivera86 and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure you like this video, share it. Make sure you get it out to all the Met fans out there on YouTube right now. The more you like, the more you share, the more you subscribe and get more subscribers, the more the algorithm works for the Subway to Shea podcast, and it gets out to more and more people. But that's it for us. Appreciate you all. Everyone have a Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, all the holidays. Happy holidays to everybody.
Merry Metsmas.
Merry Metsmas. Hopefully the Mets have some gifts under the tree, not like they did a couple years ago when it was Dylan Betances. But hopefully the Mets have a Pete Alonso or some starting pitching. I'd like to see something happen for the Mets. But as we wrap up here, thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all. And I hope to be back before the new year. Maybe I have a end of the year show if the Mets do something before New Year's comes. If not, I don't know. I don't know how much more I can talk about the Anthony Goses of the world and the Ortegas. So we'll wrap it up here. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Always remember, let's go Mets.